You know this? Only 4 days ago, last Thursday, we buried the remains of my parents. My mom was burned so badly, she cannot be identified. I lost them on October the 7th. I lost so many of my childhood friends, their parents, their children. Many were kidnapped to Gaza. I was drowning in an ocean of sorrow and pain. I was broken into pieces. Few nights after losing them, I had a dream. I was sleeping at night, crying. My entire body was in pain, and through my tears, I could see everyone crying. The entire humanity was crying with me. Our tears went down on our face to our bodies. Our bodies were wounded, damaged from the war. And then our tears washed our bodies and healed it, making it whole again. And then our tears went down to the ground, and the ground was red from blood. Our tears washed the blood from the ground, purifying the ground. And then the ground was beautiful and shining, and on that ground I could see the path to peace. I woke up shaking, and immediately I knew that this is the path I must choose. The path of not taking revenge, the path of reconciliation. And you've been walking this path for decades. We met only once before October 7th, even that was for 2 minutes maybe. But you were among the first one to reach out, send your condolences, support, and I will always love you for being there for me in my hardest time.
No, Maoz, when I sent you that message to offer my condolences after your parents were killed, I was surprised by your answer, not just to me, but your public answer. Because you said you're not only crying for your parents, you're also crying for the people in Gaza who are losing their lives. And that you do not want what happened to you to be justifying anyone taking revenge. You do not want to justify war. And it's so hard to do that. So much easier to want revenge, to be angry. But you are a brave man. I needed much more time. When my brother, Taysir, who was 19 years old, was killed by Israeli soldiers, I was angry. I was bitter. And I wanted vengeance. I was 10 years old and I thought there is no other choice. And only 8 years later, when I went to study Hebrew with Jewish immigrants to Israel, that's only when I realized that we can be allies, we can be partners. And I realized that I do have a choice. Regardless of what other people do, the choice is always mine. And I do not want to take revenge. That when I choose to be angry and hateful, I'm being a slave to the person who killed my brother. These last few months has been like a nightmare that never ends. Everyone I know in Gaza have lost family members. My friend Abdurrahim, he lost 50 people in his family. In this photo, you can see all these kids have been killed. And in the upper middle photo, the father of these kids was in Israel when they were killed. And he wanted to come back to see his kids one last time. He couldn't. He ended up back to Gaza, but never was able to make it to his house. What's amazing, though, is Abdurrahim is just like you. I talked to him yesterday, and he said, I'm still as committed to peace as I was before. I do not want my story to lead to hate. And even now, as his parents are in northern Gaza, unable to get food, unable to leave, he's still committed to this message. And it makes me wonder, how do you make such a choice in the midst of so much tragedy?
You know, I've been interviewed like 100 times in the recent months, and this is the most easiest question. It's for my parents. It's my parents' legacy. And when we put their remains in the ground, I realized that they prepared me for that moment. They taught me what to say and how to act after they will be killed. I was born in a kibbutz, just 1.5 kilometers from the border with Gaza, that was established by my grandparents. They were both Zionist pioneers, immigrated to Palestine under the British mandate about a century ago. And my father was also born in this kibbutz, and my father was a farmer. It's very, very difficult to be a farmer, even more difficult to be in the tourism industry. And 1 year, I remember that 1 year there was a drought. And then the second, there was a flood. And the third, there were insects. And at the end of each of those devastating seasons, my father will always tell me, Maoz, next year, I'm going to sow again. Because next year is going to be a better year. And my mom was a very talented mandalas painter. She painted thousands of mandala. And from all the mandala she painted, she gave me only one as a present. This is the one she gave me. And on this mandala, this is for you. I made it for you. And on the mandala she gave me, she wrote, "We can achieve all our dreams if we'll be brave enough to chase them." And in the last 20 years, I've been chasing and fulfilling many dreams. I opened the first guest house ever in the old city of Nazareth, the Fauzi Azar. I was co-founding the Jesus Trail, Abraham Hostel and Tours, and many other dreams. And in all those dreams, I was following 5 steps. Dreaming, many of us forgot or don't brave enough to dream. Creating a partnership and a coalition with as many stakeholders as possible. Reaching shared value and common ground between the partnership. Writing a very detailed roadmap and executing. And I believe this is exactly what we need to do now in order to make our dream into a reality. And I was partnering with Palestinians, with Israeli, with Jordanian, with Egyptian, and I learned that the first step in reaching a shared society and a shared future is knowing the other side narrative. And following your work for many years, even though we met only once, I think there is no one in the world that knows better how we can take our divided narratives and make them into a shared future and a shared society. So thank you for all what you've done so far. Really, it's amazing.
No, Maoz, I worked in 70 countries and peace and conflict. And everywhere I worked, I found that we share the same problems. The cause of conflicts are the same. It's lack of recognition, not willing to understand each other's historical narrative, and not having a shared vision for our future. And not doing those things is a fatal mistake. We live next to each other, and yet we are so divided. We cannot talk, we cannot meet, we cannot have a conversation. There are roadblocks, there are checkpoints, there are walls that divide us, there's societal pressure that makes us not being able to talk to each other. And I know this because my dad's first time ever going to a synagogue was in the United States when he came to visit me. He went to a Friday prayer, but the mosque was too full, and the Muslim community rented a synagogue, so he ended up praying in a synagogue. And he came back and told me he was so excited about it, and I thought, Jerusalem is full of synagogues. And yet, his first time ever being in a synagogue is in the States. That's how divided we are, how little we know about each other. But we also must learn to ask hard questions, be honest and willing to listen. My dad's first time to a peace meeting was one that I organized. And when he came, he asked a question that I thought, oh my goodness, how could you do that? He said, did the Holocaust happen? And just like the gasps we hear here, everybody in the meeting was terrified. I thought I'm going to lose my job for my dad asking the question and regretted inviting him to the peace meeting. But you know what? Because of that question, one of the Holocaust survivors in the meeting, he took my dad and 70 other Palestinians to the Holocaust Memorial. It was the first time such a big delegation going there, and they had this hard conversation. Later, the Israelis in the meeting ended up coming and having a similar conversation about Palestinian history narrative, going to a town that was destroyed in 1948 in the Nakba. I've been working in the last 20-some years and finding ways to ask those questions. In 2009, I co-founded Mejdi Tours and later Interact International with my Jewish friend, Scott, to do that, to give a context, a place where we can build a movement of citizen diplomats, where you can have dual narrative tours, an Israeli and a Palestinian co-leading a tour, and then in many other, dozen of other countries. So we can find a framework. We can say, how can I learn from you? What is it that we can push each other to do? And maybe that's the question. What have we learned from each other?
Yeah, so regarding to your further questions, I think it was November that a very, very good Palestinian friend asked me, Maoz, can I ask you a difficult question? I said, you are my friend, you can ask whatever you like. She asked me, Maoz, maybe your parents' house was burned from a crossfire from the IDF and not from the Hamas. And she was literally denying October the 7th. And I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. And then I stopped for a second and I told her, you know what? What does it matter? What does it matter? My parents are dead. And they are dead because of the conflict and the war that has been going on for so long. And it's our mission to stop it. And I learned so much in the recent months from speaking and dialoguing with Palestinians. I learned that we must forgive for the past, we must forgive for the present, but we cannot and should not forgive for the future. Not to ourselves and to no one else if we want to make the future a better future. I learned that our stories were split in the past with the different chosen son of Abraham. And for many centuries, our stories were parallel. And the gap between them is becoming wider as we are getting to the present. And it became to get wider with the beginning of the Zionist movement and the Palestinian national movement. And with all the war we've been waging on each other, it's becoming wider and wider. And now, in the present, is as wide as ever. Our stories was never apart as they are now. But there is a miracle. There is a miracle. Our stories meet. They meet in the future. We meet in the future that is based on reconciliation and recognition, that is based on security and safety, and of course, on equality. And now we must use the same steps I used to fulfill, or we used to fulfill our previous dreams in making this dream into reality. We are all dreaming of peace. We are building a coalition. Palestinian, Israelis, supporters from all over the world. We share the same values and common ground. Right now, we are writing a very detailed, informative roadmap, and we are already starting to execute. And what we are doing now, tonight, we are executing the first 2 chapters of our roadmap. We are amplifying our voices and building our legitimacy as the leaders of the future. And I could not ask for a better partner, for a better companion than you, Aziz.
हाँ, तो जैसा कि आप लोगों ने वीडियो देख लिया होगा, इस वीडियो को चूज़ करने का मेरा पर्पस क्या था? Why do I choose this video to review and to talk about it? Reason being from like I am a student of PC studies. कई बार ये important हो जाता है कि इस तरह के वीडियोज एटलीस्ट एवरीबडी शुड वॉच एंड अंडरस्टैंड कि दुनिया भर में चीज़ें क्या हो रही हैं, और कई बार हम इतना इमोशनल हो जाते हैं कि हम वॉर मॉन्गर हो जाते हैं। अगर हमारी तरफ से हमारा कुछ लूज हुआ है तो हम चाहते हैं कि सामने वाले का भी कुछ लॉस हो, और तब तक हमारा जो दिल है, हमारा जो आत्मा है, वो शांत नहीं होता, तो कई बार हम उस इमोशंस में बह जाते हैं। वीडियो में कुछ खूबसूरत पॉइंट्स, कुछ खूबसूरत बिंदु हैं जो मैं लिटरली आप लोगों को बताना चाहूँगा। इसराइल पैलेस्टाइन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट एवरीबडी नोज की 1882-83 से फर्स्ट आ गया, मतलब पहला माइग्रेशन स्टार्ट हुआ था फ्रॉम यूरोप एंड फ्रॉम ईस्टर्न यूरोप टू टूवर्ड्स पैलेस्टाइन। तो 1882 से लेके आज तक, उसके बाद से सिर्फ और सिर्फ ज्यूस एंड अरब्स के बीच में रिश्ता खराब हुआ है। जब मैं अरब्स बोलता हूँ तो अरब्स मतलब मुस्लिम्स केवल नहीं होता है। अरब मतलब वहाँ पे जो रहने वाले क्रिश्चियन अरब्स हैं। अरब्स मतलब वहाँ पे ज्यूस भी हो सकते हैं, ज्यूस भी थे, और अभी भी ज्यूस वहाँ रहते हैं। और अरब्स मतलब मुस्लिम्स। तो मैं उस, और दूसरी इसमें इस वीडियो में जो सबसे खूबसूरत चीज़ वो ये है कि बोथ आर अफेक्टेड ड्यू टू वॉर और ड्यू टू टेररिज्म। आतंकवाद की वजह से दोनों ने कुछ ना कुछ खोया है, एंड बोथ आर शेयरिंग देयर एक्सपीरियंसेस, एंड both of them they are I think civil rights activists, and they are advocating for the peace in the region, especially in Israel and Palestine. और 2 या 3 पॉइंट जो मैं हाईलाइट कराना चाहता था, जब भी आप पीस स्टडीज से पीएचडी करते हैं तो कुछ शब्द आप बार बार सुनेंगे, वो है रिकॉन्सिलिएशन, आप पीस डिप्लोमेसी एंड हाइब्रिड पीस अप्रोच, और कुछ पीस अप्रोचेस के बारे में आप सुनेंगे। मैं यहाँ पे कुछ थिंकर्स के नाम लूँ तो जॉन पॉल लेड्रैच, एंड देन आज के समय में ओलिवर रिचमंड एंड जोहान गार्टुंग, पीस स्टडीज़ के फाउंडर, आपको पहले ही पता है। मैं इन सब का नाम इसलिए ले रहा हूँ कि जब भी रिकॉन्सिलिएशन का आइडिया आता है तो कुछ चीज़ उसमें आती है। सबसे पहले दोनों साइड को ये मानना होगा कि दोनों की गलती कहीं ना कहीं है। ओनली देन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट एस्केलेटेड। कोई भी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट तब तक नहीं होता जब तक दोनों साइड इन्वॉल्व नहीं होते, वन साइड कॉन्फ्लिक्ट नहीं होता। तो सबसे पहले आपको एक्सेप्ट करना है कि आपने वो गलती की है। तो जब आप एक्सेप्ट कर लेते हैं कि आपने गलती की है, तभी आप आगे बढ़ पाते हैं रिकन्सिलिएशन प्रोसेस की तरफ। जब आप मानेंगे ही नहीं कि आपने गलत किया, चाहे वो स्टेट हो, चाहे वो एथनिक बेस्ड ग्रुप्स हो, या फिर वो रिलीजियस ग्रुप्स हो, जब तक आप मानेंगे नहीं तब तक पीस का जो रास्ता है वो तय नहीं होता। पीस के लिए पहला जो कदम है वो ये मानना होगा कि बोथ द साइड्स, और साइड्स विच आर इन्वॉल्व इन द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, दे हैव टू एक्सेप्ट कि हाँ, ये गलती उनकी साइड से है। उसके बाद दूसरा साइड आता है आपको इस बात को मानना होगा कि वी बोथ कैन को एग्जिस्ट। इस वीडियो में भी एक पॉइंट सेट गोल्स की बात आप लोगों ने देखा है, सेट गोल। और जब मैं अपना पीएचडी कर रहा था, देन इवन आई टुक अप केस स्टडी जहाँ पे एक सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इसराइल में काम कर रही है। उसका उद्देश्य ये है कि वो ऐसे स्कूलों का उन्होंने निर्माण करवाया है जहाँ पे ज्यूस एंड अरब दोनों बच्चे पढ़ते हैं, और जो स्कूल की लैंग्वेज है वो केवल हैब्रो नहीं है, ऑल्दो इट इज़ इन इसराइल, बट लैंग्वेज बोथ हैब्रो एंड अरबिक लैंग्वेज बोथ उस स्कूल्स में व्यवस्था की गई है। तो ये सबसे अच्छा तरीका है ये बताने का बच्चों को कि वी कैन को एग्जिस्ट, और बच्चों को शुरू से ही एटलीस्ट इन सब चीज़ों से, इन हेटरेट से दूर रखने का सबसे अच्छा तरीका है कि दे आर नॉट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम ईच अदर। दे आर इक्वल एंड लाइक दे कैन को एग्जिस्ट। तो अरबिक लैंग्वेज वहाँ पे इंट्रोड्यूस्ड है एंड एज वेल एज हेब्रो। तो आप जिसमें भी चाहें उसमें आप पढ़ाई कर सकते हैं, और दोनों में पढ़ना चाहें तो आप दोनों में पढ़ाई कर सकते हैं। एट द सेम टाइम उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का एक रोल ये भी है कि वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो भी वॉर की वजह से अफेक्टेड है या फिर टेररिज्म की वजह से अफेक्टेड है, उनको फैसिलिटेट करता है ऐसे इन्वायरमेंट में जहाँ पे बोथ द साइड्स दे कैन टॉक टू ईच अदर, दे कैन शेयर देयर एक्सपीरियंसेस। जो भी उनके दुख हैं, जो भी उनके वॉर के कारण जो उन्होंने खोया है, दे टॉक टू ईच अदर। जब वो एक दूसरे से बात करते हैं तो कई बार उन बहुत सारी चीज़ें उनकी जो स्टोरियोटाइप है एक दूसरे के बारे में कि इजरायली ऐसे हैं, यानी यहूदी ऐसे हैं, या फिर मुसलमान ऐसे हैं, तो सब सारी चीज़ें सामने से निकल के आती हैं जब वो एक दूसरे को जानते हैं, समझते हैं कि एक्चुअल प्रॉब्लम इजरायली और यहूदी और मुसलमान नहीं, एक्चुअल प्रॉब्लम कुछ और है। एक्चुअल प्रॉब्लम मतलब वहाँ पे कुछ और है। जब ये बात समझते हैं तब वो दे कम टुगेदर एंड दे स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट पीस। तो बहुत सारे ऐसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, लाइक मैंने एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का इंटरव्यू किया था, म्यूजिक बैंड रिलेटेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन था, जिसमें ज्यूस और अरब्स यानी मुसलमान दोनों एक साथ लाइक सिंगिंग म्यूजिक बैंड है, वो एक साथ आते हैं और पूरे ऑल ओवर द इजराइल वो लाइक वो सिंगिंग करते हैं। और वो व्हाट दे डू लाइक थ्रू म्यूजिक, वो क्या करते हैं, वो दे स्प्रेड द मैसेज ऑफ लव, मैसेज ऑफ पीस बाय सिंगिंग। ठीक है, तो ये सब एक बेहतरीन तरीका है। हाउएवर ये बहुत जल्दी पॉलिटिसाइज हो जाता है। व्हाई? बिकॉज स्टेट नैरेटिव, लाइक देयर आर सम पॉलिटिकल एंगल ऑफ इट। स्टेट नैरेटिव हमेशा जो सिविलियंस नैरेटिव होता है या फिर सिटीजन्स डिप्लोमेसी है, हमेशा कहीं ना कहीं उसको अफेक्ट करता है। तो द जो चैलेंज है वो कहीं ना कहीं कई बार अगर स्टेट इज नॉट वेरी सपोर्टिव व्हाट यू आर डूइंग फॉर द पीस, तो कई बार आप लाइक एवरीबडी नोज कैसे सिविल राइट एक्टिविस्ट और जो पीस एडवोकेट्स होते हैं, हाउ दे हैव बीन अरेस्टेड, तो कई बार उन्हें सफर करना पड़ता है। तो काफी खूबसूरत वीडियो है। आप इसे लिटरली अगर आप पीस को समझना चाहते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि कैसे जो पर्सनल ग्रीवेंसेस हैं या पर्सनल जो दुख है, ट्रेजेडी है, कैसे इट कैन ट्रांसफॉर्म इनटू अ होपफुल फ्यूचर फॉर बोथ द साइड्स व्हिच आर इन्वॉल्व इन द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, सो इसलिए मैंने ये वीडियो चूज की थी। सो थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग।